today's discussion. Let's start with the campaign. You were an early and ardent supporter of Mr. Trump. In March, you were named as chairman of the Trump campaign's National Security Advisory Committee. You were much more than a servant. You were a strategic advisor who helped shape much of the campaign's national security strategy.
And
no doubt, you will have key insight about some of the key Trump associates that we're seeking to hear from in the weeks ahead. Questions have also been raised about some of your own interactions with Russian officials during the campaign. During your confirmation hearing in January, you said, quote, you did not have communications with Russians. Senator Leahy later asked you in writing whether you'd been in contact with anyone connected to any part of the Russian government about the 2016 election. You answered, I believe, with a definitive no. Despite that, the fact is, as we discovered later, that you did have interactions with Russian government officials during the course of the campaign. In March, you acknowledged 2 meetings with the Russian ambassador. Yet, there's also been some public
whatsoever
of the possible third meeting at the Mayflower Hotel on April 27th.
8 months.
I hope that today
they
we
haven't
will
even been
clear
able
up
to
those discrepancies. We also expect,
manufacture
this is very important, you'll be willing to provide the committee with any documents that you
but
need
still,
to shed light
they talk about it like it's a real thing.
Then, there's the topic of the firing of former FBI Director Comey. Last Thursday, we received
and
testimony.
Where's the indictment of Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton
very troubling interactions
for
with the president,
meeting in secret,
as well as the circumstances of his firing? A few disturbing points stood out.
And Comey even pointed out that
First,
Loretta Lynch had
Mr. Comey,
told him or
who has
encouraged
decades
him
of experience in the
not
Department
to
of Justice and at the
prosecute
FBI, serving under presidents
that
of
is
both
an
parties,
actual breach
was so
of
unnerved
the
by the
law.
actions of the president that he
8
felt,
months
quote,
they've been talking
compelled
about this.
to fully document every interaction they had. Mr. Comey sat where
Like, how many times did you wipe your ass after taking a shit?
Concerned that the President of the United States might lie about the nature of their meetings. That's a shocking statement from one of our nation's top law enforcement officials. We also heard that Director Comey...
Are you going to ask him any questions, or are you just going to lay out the groundwork of what you're trying to get everybody to believe?
General Mike Flynn. Finally, we heard from Mr. Comey that he believes he was fired over his handling of the Russian investigation.
No, that is a direct lie.
Confirmed this in statements to
Comey, in that
this is deeply
interview or investigation, whatever it came, in his testimony, said that he was not asked to quit any sort of investigation by Trump or his administration.
Attorney General, your testimony today is an opportunity to begin the process of asking those questions.
How about you shut the fuck up and start asking the questions, the carefully constructed bullshit lies.
Yet you participated in the firing of Mr. Comey over the handling of that same investigation.
No,
we'll want to ask you about
that is
how
incorrect.
you viewed your refusal and whether you believe you complied with the order. In addition, we heard from Mr. Comey last week that the President asked you to leave the Oval Office so that he could speak one-on-one with Mr. Comey. Again, a very concerning action.
No, not
we'll
really.
need to hear from you about how you viewed the President's request
the idea
and whether you
that
thought it was working.
Head of the
we
FBI,
also want to know if you are aware of any attempts by the President
speaking privately with the President, that's like a duh.
To undermine this very same Russian investigation. Most importantly, our committee will want to hear what you are doing to ensure that the Russians or any other foreign adversaries cannot attack our democratic process like this ever again.
No, they can just attack us with
concerned
atomic bombs because of Hillary's work through the State Department, receiving donations from the Russian mining company, when the mining company, which is mostly state-controlled, was petitioning the State Department for rights to mine uranium. And they got it. And so did the Clinton Foundation, got millions of dollars from this. But no conversation about that, just this theater.
I believe the United States can and must be a leader in this, but all it requires.
How about you shut the fuck up and ask him the questions instead of just programming people with what you'd like them to believe?
Officials refusing to answer public unclassified questions about allegations
Hearsay,
about the
prove
president in this
it.
investigation.
You've already been
The
caught lying
hearing of
twice.
this subject last week, I want to commend the chairman who at the end of that hearing
Blah, blah, blah,
made
blah,
very clear
blah, 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 blah,
that our
blah,
witnesses, it was not acceptable for our witnesses to come before Congress without answers. The American people deserve to know what's going on here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to the witnesses' testimony.
You're such an
Thank
idiot,
you, Vice Chairman.
asshole.
Attorney General Sessions, if you would stand, I will administer the oath to you. Raise your right hand if you would, please. You solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And how about Bush and Cheney not having to testify?
Thank you, Attorney General
Swear
Sessions.
in
The floor
before.
is yours.
I mean, they keep looking
Thank
at
you
this
much.
one point.
Thank you very much, Chairman Burr and
There's so much
Ranking
more
Member
to be
Warner
looking
for
at. It's
allowing me to
ridiculous.
publicly appear before your committee today.
Distraction.
I appreciate the committee's critically important efforts to investigate Russian interference with our democratic process.
Yeah, let's waste more money on this
Such
bullshit.
interference can never be tolerated, and I encourage every effort to get to the bottom of any such
Stop
allegations.
wasting money. After
As
8
you know,
months, if they can't
the Deputy
manufacture
Attorney
the
General
fucking
has
evidence,
appointed a
stop
special
wasting
counsel to
our money.
investigate the matter related to the Russian
If you want
interference
to talk
in
about
the
something real,
2016
talk about the
election.
$400 billion
I'm
worth
here
of
today
weapons
to address
that
several
Trump
issues
sold
that have been
to
specifically
Saudi
raised
Arabia.
before this committee. And I appreciate the opportunity to respond to questions as fully as the Lord enables me to do so. But as I advise you, Mr. Chairman, and consistent with long-standing Department of Justice practice, I cannot and will not violate my duty to protect the confidential communications I have with the President. Now let me address some issues directly. I did not have any private meetings, nor do I recall any conversations with any Russian officials at the Mayflower Hotel. I did not attend any meetings at that event separate. Prior to the speech I attended by the President today, I attended a reception with my staff that included at least 24 people and President Trump, though I do recall several conversations that I had during that pre-speech reception. I do not have any recollection of meeting
You're supposed to have probable cause
or any other Russian
to bring
official.
this kind of.
If any brief interaction occurred in passing with the Russian
like
ambassador during that
it's
reception, I do not
the
remember.
legal precedent in this country
After
is
the
supposed
speech,
to be
I was
innocent until
interviewed by the
proven
news
guilty.
media,
And unless there's actually some
in a different room,
evidence
and then I left
of
the
wrongdoing, you're not
But
supposed to be
whether
able
I
to drill
ever
people like
attended
this.
a reception where the Russian ambassador was also present is entirely beside the point of this investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 campaign. Let me state this clearly, colleagues.
Besides,
I have
Hillary's
never
their
met
buddy.
with
If the theory
or
were
had
for
any
real, they would
conversation
have been
with any Russians or any foreign
working to
officials
get Hillary put
concerning
in
any
place.
type
Oh,
of
no war.
interference
Yeah, bullshit.
with any campaign
She
or
worked to
election
help
in the
get
United
them
States.
20%
Further, I
of our
have no knowledge
uranium
of any such conversations
reserves.
by
It's
anyone
stupid.
connected to the Trump campaign. I was
It's all
your
theater.
colleague in this body for 20 years, at least some of you, and and the suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or
He's
to
insulting
undermine
and
the
ridiculous.
integrity of our
He's a
democratic
dickhead.
process is an appalling and
This guy
detestable
is a
lie.
dickhead,
Related,
but I'm
there
defending
is
the
the
truth,
assertion
not a man.
that I did not answer Senator Franken's question honestly at my confirmation hearing. Colleagues, that is false. I can't say colleagues now. I'm no longer part of this body. A former colleague.
Yeah,
That is false.
that's right.
This is what happened. Senator Franken asked me a rambling question after some 6 hours of testimony that included dramatic new allegations that the United States intelligence community, the U.S. intelligence community, had advised President-elect Trump, quote, that there was a continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump's surrogates and intermediaries for the Russian government, close quote. I was taken aback by that explosive allegation, which he said was being reported as breaking news that very day, in which I had not heard.
Stuart
I wanted
Smalley,
to refute that immediately.
Al Franken is always
Any
been a waste of
suggestion that I was
space.
part of such an
He
activity,
was barely funny
I replied,
on
quote,
Saturday Night
I
Live.
replied to Senator Franklin.
Actually, he's more of a comedian in
Senator
Congress
Franklin,
than he ever was
I'm
on
not
Saturday
aware
Night
of
Live.
any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it. Close quote. That was the context in which I was asked the question,
for over
and
8
in that
months.
context, my answer was a fair
And they keep
and correct
spending money on
response
this.
to
They
the
keep
charge as I
pushing this.
understood it.
We know
I
what
was
Hillary
responding
did,
to this allegation that we had
and
met
they won't
surrogates have been meeting
prosecute
with the
her.
Russians
Any one
on a
of
regular
us
basis.
peasants in society
Simply
would
did
have
not
been
occur to
burned
me
to
to
the
go
ground
further
and had our
than the
ashes pissed
context
on
of the
if we'd
question
done
and to
anything
list any
anywhere near like
conversations that I
what
may have
they
had
did.
with Russians in routine situations, as I had had many routine meetings with other foreign officials.
There's
So please
constant
hear me now.
communications going on between
And it was
foreign
only
countries,
in March, after my
especially with the
confirmation
push
hearing,
for globalization.
that a
So
reporter asked
the
my
idea that
spokesperson whether
just
I had ever
communications
met
between
with any
foreign
Russian officials.
parties is
This
just
was the first time that
ridiculous.
question had squarely been posed
Evidence
to me.
of wrongdoing
On the
is the
same
only
day, we
thing
provided that reporter
that
with
should be bringing
the
this shit
information
forward.
related to the meeting that
There is
I
no
and my
evidence
staff
of
had held in
wrongdoing.
my Senate office with Ambassador Kislyak, as well as the brief encounter in July after a speech that I had given during the convention in Cleveland, Ohio.
This guy's evil, by the way.
I also provided the reporter with a list of
Defending
25
Jeff
foreign
Sessions as a
ambassador
man,
meetings
just
that I'd had during
defending the
2016.
truth of this being a
In addition,
ridiculous
I
distraction,
provided supplemental
part of the
testimony
theater to
to
keep
the
people
Senate
from paying
Judiciary
attention to
Committee
Trump
to
selling
explain
$400
this event.
billion in weapons
So
to
I
Saudi Arabia,
readily acknowledge these two
or
meetings,
not
and certainly
making
not
sure
one
that
thing
Hillary
happened
is
that was
prosecuted
improper
like
in
he's
any
supposed to
one
be.
of those meetings.
I
Let
mean,
me also
firing
explain
Comey had to
clearly
do
the
with
circumstances
partially,
of my
well, no, they all
recusal
play for the
from the
same team.
investigation into the Russian
It's
interference with
hard
the
to
2016
speak
election.
between
Please,
the
colleagues,
social
hear me on
construct that
I was
they
sworn in
push
as
on
Attorney
people
General
and the
on
reality, which is that they all play
February
for
9th.
the same team.
The
They're
very
all
next day,
working towards
as I had promised
globalization
the
and against the
Judiciary Committee I would
interests
do,
of the free American
at least
people.
at an early date,
Freedom.
I met with
We
career
can get back to that if we wanted.
department officials, including a senior ethics official, to discuss some things publicly reported in the press that might have some bearing on whether or not I should recuse myself in this case. From that point, February 10th, until I announced my formal recusal on March 2nd, I was never briefed on any investigative details, did not access
I'm sorry.
any
We don't care
information
about the
about the
truth. Can you say
investigation.
something that we can use
I
that
received only
further
the
our
limited
agenda?
information that the department's career officials determined was necessary for me to form and make a recusal decision. As such, I have no knowledge about this investigation as it is ongoing today, beyond what has been publicly reported. I don't even read that carefully. And I have taken no action whatsoever with regard to any such investigation. On the date of my formal recusal, my chief of staff sent an email to the heads of relevant departments, including by name to Director Comey of the FBI, to instruct them to inform their staffs of this recusal and to advise them not to brief me or involve me in any way in any such matters. And in fact, they
Why
have
didn't
not.
you do this? Then you did this. Why did you do this?
I recuse myself not because of any asserted wrongdoing or any belief that I may have been involved in any wrongdoing in the campaign, but because a Department of Justice regulation, 28 CFR 45.2,
quoting the law?
requirement.
Gee.
That regulation states in effect that department employees should not participate in investigations of a campaign if they serve as a campaign advisor. So the scope of my recusal, however, does not and cannot interfere with my ability to oversee the Department of Justice, including the FBI, which has an $8 billion budget and 35,000 employees, I presented to the President my concerns and those of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein about the ongoing leadership issues at the FBI, as stated in my letter recommending the removal of Mr. Comey, along with the Deputy Attorney
He
General's
should have been removed the
memorandum
moment he
on
wouldn't
that issue,
prosecute Hillary.
which have been released publicly by the White House.
And he should have
Those
gone to the
represent
public
a
and
clear
said that he was
statement of
pressured
my
by
view.
Lynch
I
not to
adopted
prosecute her.
Deputy Attorney General
And that would have
Rosenstein's
tied into the secret meeting
points
from
that he
Bill
made in
Clinton
his
and her on the
memorandum
tarmac.
and made my recommendation. It is absurd, Frank, to suggest that a recusal from a single specific investigation would render the Attorney General unable to manage the leadership of the various Department of Justice law enforcement components that conduct thousands of investigations.
It's just like them
Fine.
bastardizing
During his
Fifth
testimony,
Amendment.
Mr. Comey discussed a conversation that
It's like
he and I had
recusing himself
about the
because
meeting
of
Mr.
the
Comey had
law,
with the President.
and they use that as
I'm
some sort
happy
of
to share
evidence of
with
guilt.
the committee
And
my
it's like the Fifth
recollection of
Amendment
that
is
conversation that
not
I had with Mr. Comey.
being
Following
able
a
to
routine morning
refuse
threat briefing,
to speak
Mr. Comey
in order
spoke to me and my chief of staff.
keep from
While he did not
incriminating yourself. And that doesn't mean
provide me
that you're
with
guilty.
any of the
It means
substance
that
of
the
his
circumstances
conversation with the
themselves,
President,
if
apparently
stated,
the day
could be
before,
used
Mr. Comey
to twist
expressed
things
concern
possibly, or
about
to
proper
create, to
communication
feed a false
protocol
narrative that the
with the White House
prosecutors are
and
building.
with the President. I
It should
responded.
never be
He didn't recall
anything
this,
but
but
evidence.
I responded to his comment by agreeing that the FBI and the Department of Justice needed to be careful to follow department policies regarding appropriate contacts with the White House. Mr. Comey had served in the department for better than 2 decades, and I was confident that he understood and would abide by the well-established rules limiting communications with the White House, especially about ongoing investigations. That's what's so important to control. My comments encouraged him to do just that, and indeed, as I understand it, he in fact did that. Our Department of Justice rules on proper communications between the department and the White House have been in place for years. Mr. Comey well knew them. I thought and assumed correctly that he complied with them. So I'll finish with this. I recuse myself from any investigation into the campaign for president, but I did
Based
not
on the
recuse
law.
myself from defending my honor against scurrilous and false allegations.
Exactly.
At all times throughout the course of the campaign, the confirmation process, and since becoming Attorney General, I have dedicated myself to the highest standard. I've earned a reputation for that. At home and in this body, I believe, over decades of performance.
You're a judgmental
The
monster
people
on
of this
certain
country
issues.
expect
It's
an
true.
honest and transparent government, and that's what we're giving. This president wants to focus on the people of this country to ensure they are treated fairly and kept safe. The Trump agenda is to improve the lives of the American people. I know some have different
If that were
ways of
true, he would
achieving
have
this and
ended
different
the Patriot
agendas, but
Act, he
that
would
is
have ended
his
the
agenda,
NDAA.
and it's one I share.
Yeah,
The
no, he
important
would have
as
put
Attorney
Hillary
General, I
in
have a
prison. He wouldn't be
responsibility to
selling
enforce the laws of
$400
this nation,
million or
to
$1
protect
billion
this
worth
country
of
from
weapons to
its
Saudi
enemies,
Arabia.
and
He
to
would have
ensure the fair
untied the cops'
administration of
hands
justice.
to deal with
And I intend
protesters,
to work
not
every
write an
day
executive order
with
to
our
give them
fine
more power.
team and the superb professionals in the Department of Justice to
So
advance
the
the
Russian
important
thing is a
work we have to
distraction,
do.
and
These false
I work
attacks,
to
and innuendos,
bring out the
leaks,
truth. But this
you
guy
can be
is
sure
definitely
will
bad.
not
So is
intimidate
Trump, and
me.
so is Hillary. They all
In fact, these events have only strengthened my resolve to fulfill my duty to reduce crime, to support our federal, state, and local law enforcement
Actually, gun
officers
ownership
who
does
work on
that.
our streets every day.
More people
Just last
that
week, it
exercise
was
the right
reported that
to
overdose
keep
deaths
their
in this
arms.
country are rising faster than
The more
ever
justice,
before.
the more
Last
consequence
year
there
was
is for
52,000.
somebody
The New York
pulling a
Times
gun
just
on a
estimated next year will
law-abiding
be
citizen.
62,000
Armed,
overdose
law-abiding
deaths.
citizens
The murder
equal
rate is
justice.
up over 10%.
And it's a right.
The
It's not a
largest
privilege.
increase since 1968. Together, we are telling the gangs, the cartels, the fraudsters, and the terrorists. We are coming after you, every one of our citizens, no matter who they are or where they live, has the right to be safe in their homes and
Yeah,
communities.
against you too, which is
And I
why
will not be
if Trump were
deterred.
for real, he
I
would
will not allow
remove
this
the
great department
NDAA.
to be deterred.
If somebody
from its
is
vital
a
mission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
transplant,
Thank you,
a
Member
refugee,
Warner. Have a great honor to appear before you today, and I will do my
a
best.
legal immigrant,
General
and they
Sessions,
show
thank you.
signs of trying to
Thank you for that
change the
testimony.
culture of being radicalized,
I'd like
that
to
there's
note
evidence
for
of
members,
that.
the chair and the vice chair.
And once there's evidence, you can go after U.S. citizens. So the idea that we
And
need
I'd
some
like to
sort of
remind our
special
members that
powers
we
to
are in
deal
open session.
with American
No
people
references to classified
that might
committee
cause
sensitive
issues is
materials
just
should be
ludicrous.
used relative to your questions. With that, I recognize myself at this time for 10 minutes. General Sessions,
This could get interesting.
you talked about the Mayflower Hotel, where the president gave his first foreign policy speech, and it's been covered in the press that the president was there, you were there, others were there. From your testimony, you said you don't remember whether Ambassador Kislyak was there, the Russian ambassador. Is that correct?
I did not remember that, but I understand he was there, and so I don't doubt that he was. I believe that representations are correct. In fact, I recently saw a video of him coming into the room.
But you never remember having
Never remember having great English from
I
our
do not.
leaders.
And there was, in that event, was there ever a private room setting that you were involved in?
No.
See, this is
other than the reception
this is entirely
area
the legal.
that was shut
This
off
is leading
from,
the witness. This is trying.
I
It's
guess
not
the
asking him
main
a question
crowd, a couple of dozen, 2 or 3
and
dozen.
having him
I would take for
answer.
granted at an event
It's
like this, the president shook some hands.
structuring the
Yes, he came
questions
in
to
and
lead
shook
to a
hands
very
in the-
specific place, which is
You
dishonest.
mentioned that there were
That's why
some
lawyers
staff that were with you at that event.
A lot of lawyers are very evil.
My legislative director at the time,
This is
Doc-
your Senate staff.
Senate legislative director, who was a retired U.S. Army colonel who served on the Armed Services staff of Senator John Warner before she joined my staff, was with me in the reception area and throughout the rest of the events.
Would you say that you were there as a United States Senator or as a surrogate of the campaign for this event?
I came there as a interested person, very anxious to see how President Trump would do in his first major.
Wait, we're trying to nail you down
to
saying that you're there to represent one or the other. It doesn't matter that you were just there as
so it was an interesting
interested
time
person.
for me to observe his delivery and the message he would make. That was my main purpose of being there.
Now, you reported 2 other meetings with Ambassador Kislyak, one in July on the sidelines of the Republican convention, I believe, and one in September in your Senate office. Have you had any other interactions with government officials over the year?
We'll talk a very specific thing, and then we'll finish it with a completely broad, open-ended question.
No, Mr. Chairman.
That's such a dishonest psychological tactic.
Answer any of
It's
those
like, all right, everybody listening, I want you to pay attention to this name. This is the boogeyman that we're trying to make you
when asked about
think
whether
is
I had
guilty
any
or
meetings
whatever
with Russians by the
interface for the Russian
reporter in March,
connection.
we immediately recalled the conversation, the encounter I had
This is
at the
just
convention
ridiculous.
and the meeting in my office and made that public.
And this is what's been going on for 8 months.
I would have gladly
These
have reported
bullshit,
the
dishonest conversational
the
meeting
encounter
tactics,
that may have occurred, that some say occurred,
dishonest
in,
psychology
Mayflower,
to try to get
if I had
anybody
remembered
watching
it,
it to
or if it
think a
actually
certain way.
occurred, which I don't remember.
That's not the way
Sessions on
investigation
March
is supposed to be
2nd,
conducted.
2017,
It's supposed to be,
accused yourself of any involvement
justice
in
is supposed to be
investigation
blind.
conducted
We're
by
just
the
supposed to be
FBI
looking
and
for
the Department
evidence
of
and
Justice.
truth and the definable. These warm,
Or the
fuzzy.
specific reasons that you chose to
What
recuse?
are the specific
Well, the
reasons?
specific
I already
reason,
answered,
Mr.
fucking
Chairman,
dick.
is a CFR, a Congressional Code of Federal Regulations, put out
Yeah, he already
by
read
the
that, you
Department of Justice, part
dumbass.
of the
But I
Department
need
of
to show
Justice
that I'm special and I
rules,
read him the
and it
question
says this. I'll
myself
read
because
from
I don't think,
8 CFR 45.2.
which he
Unless
read off
authorized,
in his
no
opening
employee
statements,
shall
you
participate
fool.
in a criminal investigation
Well, I'm
or
simply asking the
prosecution
question
if
as
he
to
has
how
a
there's
personal
a
or
matter of
political
record. But when he read his
relationship
opening
with
statements,
any
it became a matter of
person
the record.
involved in the conduct of an investigation. It goes on to say for political, in a political campaign, and it says if you have a close identification with an elected official or candidate arising from service as a principal advisor, you should not.
Well, that's the second time he's read that to them.
Participate in an investigation of that campaign. So many have suggested that my recusal is because I felt I was a subject of the investigation myself, that I may have done something wrong, but this is the reason
Careful
I
there,
recused myself.
Sessions.
I
You're
felt I was
destroying their
required
illusion.
to under the rules of the Department of Justice, and as a leader of the Department of Justice, I should comply with the rules, obviously.
So did your legal counsel basically know from day one you would have to recuse yourself from this investigation because of the current statute?
Well, I do have a timeline of what occurred. I was sworn in on the 9th, I believe, of February. I then, on the 10th, had my first meeting to generally discuss this issue where the CFR was not discussed. We had several other meetings, and it became clear to me over time that I qualified as a significant
There's nothing in these
principal advisor type person to
videos
the campaign,
that
and it would be
is by
appropriate and right
accident.
thing to
They
do.
know
So
exactly
this
what's
could,
going to
this could explain
So
Director
they're
Cole's
showing that
comments. He knew
lady on her
that
laptop,
likely
maybe she's
to
a
recuse yourself
stenographer, I
because he
don't
was
know,
probably familiar
but
with the same
showing her legs.
Well, I think I probably
Pretty
so.
well.
I'm sure that the attorneys in the Department of Justice probably communicated with her. Because, Mr. Chairman, let me say this to you clearly. In effect, as a matter of fact, I recused myself that day. I never received any
You
information
waited.
about the campaign.
You waited
I thought
until
there
you
was a
actually
problem
read
with
the
me
law,
being able to
and that
serve
was
as
like
Attorney
2
General
days
over
later.
this issue.
Wow.
And I felt I would possibly have to recuse myself. And I took the position correctly, I believe, not to involve myself in the campaign in any way, and I did not.
You made a reference to your chief of staff sending out an email immediately notifying internally of your decision to recuse. Would you ask your chief of staff to make that email available?
We would be pleased to do so, and I think I have it with me now.
Thank you, John Sessions.
After
Have
all
you
this
had any
time,
interactions
you
with
haven't
the
already
special counsel
requested
since
that
his appointment?
I have not. With regard to the email we sent out, Mr. Comey, Director Comey, indicated that he did not know that when I recused myself or did not receive notice. One of those emails went to him by name.
He's only the head of the FBI.
What happens in our offices, I'm not accusing him of any wrongdoing, but in fact, it was sent to him and to his name.
Okay. Colonel Sessions, as you said, Mr. Comey testified at length before the committee about his interactions with the president in some cases, highlighting your presence at those meetings. And you addressed the meeting where all were asked to leave except for Director Comey, and we had a private meeting with the president. And you said that he did inform you of how uncomfortable that was, and your recommendation was that the FBI and DOJ needed to follow the rules limiting further correspondence. Did Director Comey ever express additional discomfort with conversations that the president might have had with him? Because he had 2 additional meetings.
Maybe he had a fucking burrito for lunch and had discomfort in the bathroom that wouldn't have any relevance in this bullshit.
There's nothing
and anything
wrong
else.
with the president having a communication with the
Exactly.
FBI director. What is problematic for any Department of Justice employee is to talk to any cabinet persons or White House officials, um, high officials about ongoing investigations that are not properly cleared through the top levels of the Department of Justice. And so it was a regulation I think is healthy. I thought we needed and strongly believe we needed to restore discipline within our department to adhere to just those kind of rules, plus leaking rules and some of the other things that I think are a bit lax and need to be restored.
You couldn't have had a conversation with the president about the investigation because you were never briefed on the investigation.
That is correct. I would note that with regard to the private meeting that Director Comey had, by his own admission, I believe there are as many as 6 such meetings. Several of them he had with President Trump. I think he had 2 with President Obama. So it's not improper per se.
Exactly.
But would not be.
That's not the way the media is trying to present it, though.
To share information about an ongoing investigation without prior review and clearance from above.
Colonel Sessions, just one last question. You were the chair of this foreign policy team for the Trump.
He's
Trump
just
campaign.
the whole demeanor of this guy is, well, how can I nail you? How can I make this about? Blah, blah, blah.
We met a couple of times, maybe. Some of the people did, but we never functioned, frankly, Mr. Chairman, as a coherent team. We had various meetings.
Were there any members of that team you never met?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, General Sessions. As I mentioned in my opening statement,
yeah, I'm not even gonna.
We appreciate.
I'm not gonna continue with because I want to. I don't want to breach any. I mean, this is fair use. I'm not gonna broadcast the whole thing, and these are really public officials, but I still don't want to reach a copyright situation, which I'm not. It's fair use, like I said, and these are public officials, and the broadcast is secondary to the main broadcast, which is me commenting on it. But it's just BS, and they have everybody programmed to focus on this stuff because they don't want you focusing on what's real. It was always scripted, in my opinion, for Trump to be president, and he's just one of them. I don't defend a person, I defend the truth. And this is just a distraction. You want to look at the reality, look at the fact that Trump has always been a darling of the financial institutions, and those are the institutions that pretty much run everything, including us. They're the reasons that anytime we start a good movement, they control the money, so they can either buy out the system itself or infiltrate it through buying out people. But this whole thing is a joke, and people need to start doing research for themselves, because it's reported on, all these things, like I brought up before, the giving more power to the police, to protection for the police acting more violently, rather than just untying their hands and letting them enforce existing laws. Because you want to talk about disorderly conduct, we shut down the roads where people can't get to daycare to pick up their kids, they can't get to the hospital if they're hurt, they can't get where they're going, and it happens time after time. Cops should have been fully allowed, regardless of whether it was one side, one flavor of the coin, or the other. It should have been taken care of. But start asking real questions, start reading the news stories for yourself, and coming to your own conclusions, because this is leading every one of these people that's going to drill this guy, and it's all scripted by my opinion, but they're all pushing a very specific attack agenda, and it's not justice. Justice is, what is their evidence for? Guilty or innocent until proven guilty, though the new standard of law has become guilty until proven innocent, which is just terrible. Anyway, it is possible to reverse things. But as long as people follow this fake narrative and swallow this crap, we'll never get any place.